you can't get very far today without running into somebody that's talking about moving to the cloud. I think in information technology circles, um, if you look at what are the three things that are going on right now, you've got cloud, you've got mobile, you've got big data. And certainly I'll touch on those other things down the road, but I want to talk a little bit about cloud today and specifically about software as a service because I think there are some really interesting things, and in particular, looking at probably the most successful software as a service vendor that there is in Salesforce. So first and foremost, of course, everyone wants to go to the cloud because they're going to save money. So when you think about the economies of scale, with Salesforce, you're talking about an organization that's developed 120,000 plus customers. They handle 1 billion or more transactions a day. Um, Almost half of those are via API. I think they have users in state governments in all 50 states, every cabinet level agency. They become ubiquitous, which is impressive because just a few years ago we were talking about, not sure if we're going to go to the cloud because there's a lot of risk there. And I think a lot of that's been alleviated. And some of that's because people have started to realize there's a really strong alignment of interests when you talk about security in the cloud. Those organizations are heavily dependent on the perception on the customer's part of security. And so, of course, any breach is going to be something that has enormous consequences for Salesforce or whoever the vendor is. And so I think that they put a huge emphasis on that. And of course, with Salesforce, you also have trust.salesforce.com, which is a really public way of saying you can trust us. Go look. You can see how we're performing. So I think that's been an enormous factor in the growth of that particular platform. So I think there are two other things. Saving money always comes up, but I think there are two other areas where there's enormous benefit that don't get talked about quite so much. And so the first one I want to talk about there is time to value. So one of the amazing things about Salesforce is the hardware infrastructure, application infrastructure, security model. All of those things are already in place. You don't have to think about it. That's not something that you have to plan for. You just focus on writing your code if you need to modify it, or working with your organization to be able to configure the implementation that they have in place to be able to do whatever it is you have to do. I think that's an enormous benefit that people don't really understand, that you've got something here that's essentially has enormous functionality out of the box and then is very easily customizable, configurable, and if you need to, you can write your own code into it, and you can just focus on those things. You're not worried about what's the architecture underneath, is it going to scale? All of that stuff's taken care of for you. I think that's another huge benefit that a lot of times people don't consider. Another one is this idea that there's a path to value, and I think this is something that in particular, if you look at Salesforce, the model that they've built out as the app exchange becomes something that's more prevalent, and you see organizations with 4 or 5 or 6 apps on top of their CRM implementation or whatever it is, and they're beginning to get this real Salesforce ecosystem value together, where it's the platform plus assessments or inspections. Our exam application. Well, some of the value that you can get out of that is, all right, you go out, you do your, let's say you're using it for facilities management. You do your inspection, you find something, there's a deficiency, boom, you kick that across to Service Cloud, and you start your case there, or Sales Cloud. There's an enormous benefit in that very easy ability to link across to the other technologies that you want to use and maintain the same standard user interface, have the same type of security model in place. There's so much to be said for this sort of, all right, I'm heading down this path, and it's not just the value that I'm going to get today in this one project. It's the ability to add things to it as my needs evolve, or as my taste for change or transformation increases. It's the ecosystem component of this can't be ignored, and I think it's something that as people begin to really seriously evaluate the total value play that they're getting out of their cloud implementation, that's going to be something that they really look at very seriously.